Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. I want to share a story that still aches in my heart because it's about something every parent fears, being told you're no longer needed. As mothers, we spend years giving everything, our strength, our time, our love. We never imagine the day our children might forget all of that. But one evening, my son looked me in the eye and said words that shattered me. "We don't need you anymore." I thought my place in his life was over, but life had other plans. I raised my son with everything I had. From the moment I held him in my arms, I promised myself he would never go without. I worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs at once, just to keep food on the table and shoes on his growing feet. I skipped meals so he could eat. I stayed up through the night sewing his school costumes, cheering from the back of every auditorium, clapping until my hands stung. He was my pride, my joy. The reason I kept going even on the hardest days. As he grew older, I watched him build his own life. He got married, started a family, and I truly believed that the bond we shared would carry through every season of life. I didn't expect to be needed in the same way as when he was a boy, but I thought I would still matter. After all, isn't a mother's love supposed to be something you never outgrow? One evening, I went over to his house. I had made a casserole, the kind he loved as a child. I thought it would be a nice surprise for him and his family. But when I arrived, the mood was different. He was distant, his wife looked uncomfortable. We sat down in the kitchen, and I tried to make small talk, but something hung heavy in the air. Then my son cleared his throat, his expression hard. "Mom," he said slowly, "we don't need you anymore." At first I thought I had misheard. My ears rang, my heart stopped. "What did you say?" I whispered, clutching the edge of the table. He repeated it, firmer this time. "We don't need you. We're doing fine on our own. You don't have to keep coming by or interfering." The word interfering hit me like a knife. I sat there frozen, the casserole dish still warm in my hands. My mind reeled back to the nights I had rocked him, to sleep, to the mornings I had packed his lunch, to the years I had sacrificed so much of myself. And now here he was, the same boy I once carried on my hip, telling me I wasn't needed. I tried to smile, to hold back the tears stinging my eyes. "I only wanted to help," I whispered. He shrugged. "I know, but we don't need it anymore." I left that night with the casserole still in my arms. When I got home, I set it down on my own kitchen table and cried harder than I had in years. Those words echoed through my mind for days, weeks. "We don't need you anymore." I wondered if all those sacrifices had been invisible, if all the love I poured into him had simply evaporated once he built his own life. I felt like a piece of my heart had been ripped away. But what I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was that life had a way of humbling even the most confident voices. My son would soon learn just how much he did need me. And when the time came, it wasn't me who went knocking on his door. It was him, coming back to mine. The days after his words felt like walking through an empty house, even though I still had a roof over my head. I woke each morning with the same routine. Coffee, quiet, the hum of the refrigerator. But everything seemed heavier. It wasn't just loneliness. It was the sting of being dismissed by the very child I had given my life to. I used to look forward to his visits, his calls, even his texts. A photo of the grandkids, a quick update about work. Those little things kept me going, but now my phone stayed silent. Days turned into weeks, and the silence became its own cruel companion. At night, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, staring at the streetlights. I thought about when he was small, running up the driveway with scraped knees, shouting, "Mom!" like I was the only person who could fix the world. Back then, I was his anchor. Now I felt like nothing more than a shadow he'd outgrown. Friends tried to comfort me. "He's just busy with his own family," they said. "Kids forget sometimes, but deep down they still love you." And I nodded, but inside I wondered, was love supposed to feel like this? Invisible? Forgotten? I kept myself busy to fill the quiet. I volunteered at the library, joined a quilting circle at church, planted tomatoes in the backyard. On the outside I smiled, made small talk, laughed when expected. But inside, the ache stayed. One evening I took out the photo albums. Page after page of memories stared back at me. His first steps, his first day of school, the graduation photo where I had cried with pride. I traced my finger over the pictures, whispering, "Where did we go wrong?" I replayed our last conversation in my head, over and over. Maybe I had been too present, maybe my casserole dinners and surprise visits felt like intrusions. I thought I was helping, showing love. Did he see it as control? The questions circled endlessly, each one without an answer. Yet even through the pain, I couldn't stop loving him. That's the curse and the blessing of being a mother. Your heart beats for them, even when they break it. Sometimes, late at night, I caught myself praying. Not for money, not for health, but for my son's heart to soften. "Let him remember," I whispered. Let him remember who I am. But for the moment, all I had was silence. And I tried to make peace with it, though it felt like trying to hold water in my hands. Still, something inside me knew life has a way of shifting, of humbling. My son believed he didn't need me anymore, but life hadn't finished teaching him yet. And when the lesson came, it would bring him back to my door. It happened on a Tuesday, out of the blue. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. It had been so long since he called, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear his voice again, but something told me to pick up. Mom. His voice cracked, a sound I hadn't heard since he was a teenager. I don't know what to do. My heart dropped. Between heavy breaths, he told me everything. He had lost his job, downsized, they called it. His savings were gone faster than he expected. Bills piled up. And then, the biggest blow, his wife had left, taking the children with her to stay at her mother's. He was alone, truly alone. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to remind him of his words. We don't need you anymore. The echo of them still stung like a fresh bruise, but the mother in me, the part of me that had never stopped loving him, pushed the bitterness aside. Where are you? I asked softly. He hesitated. At the apartment, but I can't stay here. They're evicting me next week. The silence between us felt heavy. I could hear the fear in his voice, the shame. My son, once so confident, so sure he had it all figured out, was suddenly small again, like the little boy who used to run to me when life felt too big. I'll come get you, I said finally. When I pulled up outside his building, I barely recognized him. His shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. The man who once told me he didn't need me anymore looked like he was carrying the whole world on his back and losing. He climbed into my car quietly, his belongings in 2 small bags. No grand speeches, no explanations, just silence. The kind of silence that spoke louder than words. Back at my house, I made him a meal, nothing fancy, just soup and bread. As he ate, I saw his hands trembling, not from the temperature, but from the weight of everything he had lost. And then, like a dam breaking, he whispered, I was wrong, Mom. His voice cracked. I thought I had it all. I thought I didn't need you anymore. But when everything fell apart, the only person I could think to call was you. Tears welled in my eyes, but I stayed calm. I reached across the table, laid my hand on his. That's because no matter what, I'm still your mother, and a mother doesn't stop being a mother even when her child forgets. He nodded, his face buried in his hands. In that moment, I saw not just my grown son, but the boy I had raised, the boy who deep down had always needed me. Life had humbled him. And though it broke my heart to see him like this, it also healed something in me, because finally he saw me again. When he carried his bags into my house, I could feel the weight of his pride pressing down on him. My son had always been so sure of himself, independent, confident, even arrogant at times. But now, walking through my doorway with nothing left, he looked more like the boy I once tucked into bed after nightmares than the man who had told me, we don't need you anymore. I showed him to the spare room. The bed was already made, fresh sheets tucked tight, just like I used to do. It's not much, I said gently, but it's yours for as long as you need. He didn't answer, just nodded with tired eyes. Over the next few days, I slipped back into familiar rhythms. I made breakfast, brewed coffee, and left little notes reminding him to eat. At first, he resisted. Mom, you don't have to do all this, he muttered one morning. I smiled. I know I don't have to. I want to. But this time, I did things differently. I didn't shield him from everything. I didn't fix every problem. Instead, I gave him space to stumble, to learn, to carry some of the weight himself. When bills came in, I spread them on the table. We'll go through these together, I told him. His face flushed with shame, but he nodded. Step by step, I showed him how to budget, how to stretch what little he had. At night, we sat in the living room, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking for hours. He opened up in ways he never had before. About the stress of trying to provide, the pressure of keeping up appearances, the fear of failing as a husband and father. His voice trembled when he admitted, I thought pushing you away made me strong, but it only made me weaker. Hearing that hurt, but it also healed. Because for the first time, he was speaking from the heart, not with arrogance, but with humility. Slowly, I watched him rebuild. He started looking for work, sending out resumes, going to interviews. Each rejection stung, but I reminded him, every no brings you closer to the right yes. And in small ways, I saw changes. He began washing the dishes without me asking. He fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom. One evening, he came home with groceries, paid for with what little money he had left. It's not much, he said, but I wanted to contribute. I smiled through tears. It wasn't the food that mattered. It was the effort, the acknowledgement, the realization that he wasn't entitled to my care. It was a gift. Sometimes when I caught him watching me, his eyes were soft, almost regretful. One night he whispered, "I don't know how you kept loving me after everything I said." I reached for his hand, because that's what mothers do. But love doesn't mean letting someone forget your worth. You forgot mine once. Don't forget it again. He nodded, his grip tightening, and in that moment, I knew he had learned something. Maybe not everything yet, but enough to begin. It took time, longer than either of us expected, but slowly, my son began to stand on his own again. At first, the job rejections piled up like bricks on his back. He came home weary, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast, but each time I reminded him, "You've survived worse. Keep trying." One morning, after weeks of searching, the phone finally rang with good news. He had landed a position, not glamorous, not high-paying, but steady, honest work. The relief in his voice was something I hadn't heard in years. "Mom," he said, breathless, "I did it. I got a job." I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because he had found work, but because he said I did it. For the first time, he wasn't leaning on me to carry the whole load. He was standing on his own 2 feet. With each paycheck, I noticed small changes. He contributed to groceries, slipped a little cash toward the utility bills. One evening, he surprised me with flowers, awkwardly handing them over. "I never realized how much you do," he admitted. "This is just a small thank you." The flowers weren't fancy, but to me they were worth more than gold. His humility extended beyond the house. He began calling his kids every night, determined to repair the bond with them, too. Sometimes they answered warmly, sometimes coldly, but he kept trying, and I encouraged him, reminding him that love is patient, that rebuilding trust takes time, and slowly, he started seeing me not just as the safety net, but as his anchor. One evening, as we sat together over dinner, he said, "I used to think strength meant pushing you away, proving I didn't need anyone. But now I see, strength is knowing when you do need someone, and being grateful for it." Those words melted the last piece of ice around my heart. Life at home settled into a rhythm. We shared morning coffee, talked about our days, even laughed again. The bitterness that once hung between us had dissolved, replaced by something deeper, respect. And one Sunday, as we left church together, he slipped his arm around my shoulders and whispered, "Mom, I'll never forget what you did for me. Not just now, but always. I see it now. I see you now." For the first time in a long time, I felt seen, truly seen. Not just as a background figure in his life, but as the mother whose love had carried him through storms he didn't even realize he was in. He once told me, "We don't need you anymore." But life taught him otherwise. And as I watched him rebuild his life piece by piece, I realized something too. Sometimes it takes losing everything to remember who's been there all along. And sometimes it takes a broken heart to build a stronger bond than ever before. In the end, my son's words, "We don't need you anymore," cut me deeper than I can ever describe. But life has a way of humbling us, of showing us who truly stands by us when everything else falls apart. He lost his job, his home, even his marriage. And when the world turned its back, he remembered who had never stopped loving him. Today, we are closer than ever. Not because life was easy, but because hardship opened his eyes. So if you've ever felt pushed aside, forgotten, or told you're no longer needed, hold on. Love doesn't disappear. Sometimes it takes a storm for people to finally see where their shelter has always been. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of love, family, and second chances.